Good morning to those of you that are joining us. We're going to give everybody just a few more minutes. Looks like people are still coming on, and wanted to just jump in and maybe give you guys a sound test. So make sure you're hearing me. Please feel free if you're hearing me. I was gonna say if you're not hearing me, put a message in chat. But that doesn't really work that way, does it, guys? Um, but hopefully you're hearing me loud and clear. We'll get started here in just a couple minutes. All right. Good morning, everybody. I guess good afternoon, just the beginning of the afternoon for those of you on the East Coast, and good late afternoon for my colleagues that are joining from the UK. Hope everybody's doing great. We should have, I think we're going to have a great session today. I appreciate everybody that's registered and is on the call. I'm going to kind of go through an agenda of the things that we're planning on talking about today, and then I'll turn it over to Suraj Kika for some words of wisdom. Let's just do a quick sound check. Suraj, you hear me loud and clear, and I want to make sure I can hear you loud and clear.
I can hear you loud and clear, John, as usual.
Great, great. Loud, not always clear, you mean? So yeah, I think we've got some really good topics and agenda on the session today. I want to make sure that, coming away from this, we get great feedback from everybody. These are things that we would like to do more frequently. We obviously, a lot of you know that we had a physical in-person academy user group in November that kind of coincided with the EDUCAUSE conference. We were going to do another physical one now, but we got lots of great feedback from everybody that they weren't able to travel that frequently, but would still like to attend. So now we're having the first virtual Jadu Academy. So I think moving forward, we plan to do virtual academies at maybe a higher frequency, and then an annual, maybe in-person user group. So we really want to get that feedback from you guys, not just maybe the frequency of those, but we want to make sure that heading into those, that the content that we are including is driven by you guys, most importantly. A couple house cleaning things. So we are recording the webinar today, and that'll be shared via email after the Academy session. If you want to ask questions, or at least let me encourage you to ask questions, please, along the way. You can do that using the chat on the sidebar of your GoToWebinar control panel. And there's going to be a competition that we're doing during the sessions today. So those of you, I think Christine's going to award the most engaged. I'm sorry, the best tweet. So get your phones out and do some tweeting during the academy, and then we'll also have an award, which I think we're giving away some Apple AirPods, if I'm not mistaken, for the most engaged attendee. So asking lots of questions, posting on social media, and responding to the polls and the surveys that are going on during this session. We'll have formal Q&A at the end of each of the presentations, so please do use that question bar if you want to ask questions to the current presenter. We'll be monitoring those, and then we'll give everybody an opportunity to look through those questions and provide some responses back at the end of each section. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our trusted leader, Suraj Kika. Suraj, I'm going to let you take it away for a little while here.
Hi guys, hi everybody. I'm Suraj. You probably already know me, but if you don't, I'm Jadu's Group CEO. I'm also the CEO of Spacecraft, which is our global digital design agency. So most of you will know that I spend a lot of my time in Kansas City with John, and what you can see is our little corner of the office there. Huge office with just me and John in it. Well, actually, it's a shared space, so there's kind of loads more people there as well. But what's interesting is that our business in the US is almost entirely focused on higher ed. So most of you guys will be from an institution, a university or a college, and whilst we do serve higher ed across the world as well, our business is kind of split between higher education and government, and those are I guess that's the playground where we work. It's highly scaled, highly secure websites, forms, and now case management tools as well. And one of the things that John and I have really focused on in the US is establishing our business through partners. So some of you will have onboarded through a partner called Highland Software. We also work with Ellucian, we work with Pitney Bowes, and a whole slew of other partners as well. One thing I'm really pleased to tell you guys about is our new Jadu Gar in the US, Joel. I think Joel is actually dialed in today. Joel has a lovely smile and is here to help you with your project. So yeah, hopefully you'll all be meeting Joel soon as well. So guys, as John mentioned, we have a Twitter competition. So what John didn't tell you is that the winner of the best tweet will get to choose a charity, and we're going to donate $500 to charity of your choice. So if you do a selfie in front of your computer, maybe eating a donut, or it's a shame, unfortunately, with the virtual academy, we can't send you cakes, we can't feed you cakes. But if you have a cup of coffee and a donut handy, maybe you could just tweet yourself or a selfie of you or your co-workers enjoying the virtual academy on Twitter, and you could be raising $500 for your favorite charity. Also, for most engaged attendee, we're giving away a pair of Apple iPods, and these are no ordinary iPods. These are the 2.0 iPods, so or AirPods, should I say? Yeah, if you can see your way to paying attention through the sessions this morning, and hopefully your coffee keeps you awake, then you could also be winning a set of brand new AirPods too. So all you have to do is @Jadu and hashtag Jadu Academy and watch the sessions today, and hopefully there'll be a prize heading your way. So agenda-wise, you've got me for the next 10 minutes. You'll have John probably for the next 30 minutes. John's going to take you on a slightly deeper dive of the CXM platform and how that's driving the Jadu business forward now. And I'll be telling you a little bit more about that, but you'll actually get to see a lot more from John as well. And then John will also just reiterate at the end the competition. Then it's time to grab a coffee. So you've got about 15 minutes to run and grab some more coffee to fuel you up for the rest of the morning. We've got Jared Mueller from Cluedo, our good friends and partners at Cluedo, who provide website search technology and kind of like a little bit of AI and machine learning built into their algorithms, which makes a really cool search engine. And many of our customers are starting to adopt Cluedo, some of the biggest ones that we have. And I guess if you're looking for something that does a better job than what the Google search used to do, then Cluedo is the product for you. Then we're really honored to have Chris Hardy, who is the Director of Web and Digital Marketing at Messiah College. Now, I have to tell you guys, the things that Messiah College do with their Jadu platform are mind-bending. They have some magicians buried somewhere deep in the basement at Messiah who know how to really code some really cool things. So hopefully Chris will tell you more about some of the amazing work that they're doing to engage students with the messiah.edu website. And then finally, to finish things off, we've got Andy Green, who's the product owner for Jadu Forms. And Andy is going to talk about, well, he's going to do a quick demo of the Form Builder, which is the brand new form building interface, which some of you will have seen. And he's also going to talk to you about the roadmap for the Jadu Forms going forward. And then Sarah is going to do something similar. She's going to tour you through the new Galaxies Designer using our new Photon technology. And Sarah is also going to talk about some self-service content that we're making ready for our customers and our users, and an update on where the CMS is heading in the immediate future as well. And then we'll have a short Q&A and we'll announce the winners too. So hopefully if you guys are still with us by then, you should have had a full morning of great Jadu content as well. So the first thing I really want to talk about, something that Jadu is hugely passionate about, is accessibility. And many of you will know that we've been working on significantly ramping up accessibility since the new WCAG 2.1 changes have come in last year. So all public bodies must now be accessible. And the WCAG, which is how accessibility is measured, have 17 new measures. So the guidelines haven't changed, but there are 17 new measures that we have to take into consideration, I guess. Now, we've been focused our efforts in two main areas here. We've been making our templates more accessible and easier to manage. So I guess that's the main thrust of what we're talking about when we talk about Photon. And we've also been hugely improving the accessibility of the Jadu Control Center itself. So the actual tools that you use to log in to Jadu every day and publish and create forms and create workflows. We've been making a lot of strides in making that whole experience way more accessible. So a lot of what we've been talking about with Photon for the past 3 or 4 months since we released it into the Jadu platform has been kind of, I suppose, a little bit abstract. You see a brand and there's not really much else. Photon's a developer tool set for rapidly deploying new templates and designs. And this is for the web CMS, it's for forms, and it kind of cuts across all of our enterprise products. And the new templating engine in the CMS enables rapid deployment of new HTML5 web templates, and those templates are reusable from between the CMS and Galaxy sites too. So a really powerful way for us to craft and design new web experiences, much more future-proofed as well. There's a couple of links in this slide, and I think Kirstine is going to share this slide deck out later for you, so you can kind of self-serve to more Photon content as well, telling you how Photon affects the Jadu enterprise products, but also tells you about how you can leverage Photon in the new Galaxies Designer too. One of the things that Sarah is going to tour you through as well is the new self-service content that we're starting to make available, and the Photon documentation, which is now online. There's a link in this slide that you can click and have a look at. Kind of takes you through a lot of the frameworks that you have available to you, and so if you wanted to get started building a Photon website straight away, then there's documentation here that tours you through that whole process. Photon lets any web designer or web developer design templates rapidly, removing all of the business logic from HTML. You can reuse main website themes. You can swap and trade those templates too. So it's a much faster, more reusable way to craft and design websites, way faster than perhaps the classic Jadu has been over the past decade. And all Jadu enterprise products now leverage Photon. So CMS, XFP, and Content Portal all now use Photon templates. So guys, normally I'd be stood in front of you, and there'd be I always get to have a Steve Jobs moment, I guess, and there'd be smoke and lightning and fireworks, and unfortunately the best I could do is a sound file. Deployer is one of the things that we've been working on alongside the Photon technology, and it really is yet another way that we can help you be self-sufficient. We've really worked hard to try and make Continuum releases more reliable, and since moving to continuous release, we've removed the need for upgrades. So the days of running huge projects are kind of behind us now, where a version 2.0 of Jadu would come out and you would then have to run a 3-4 month project to update that system. And continuous release favors small iterative releases over time rather than sort of big bang releases. Hopefully some of you are starting to feel that benefit already. One of the real sticking points, and we really heard our customers when they told us that continuum releases weren't always the easiest to roll out. So we created a low-code software tool set that allows us to do that. It allows us to give you the control, which is really what our strategy is about, giving you the control and helping you deploy faster and in a more efficient way. So this is just a quick 2-minute video that kind of explains how we've brought Photon together with Deployer and also created a whole set of certifications, which many of you will know about, some of you won't. A whole set of certifications that helps give your teams the tools that they need to be able to really fully leverage the Jadu tool set, but also leverage the developer tools that we're now making available as well. So I'm just going to quickly play this 2.5 minute video, and I hope over the airwaves this kind of plays okay. So let's get that started.
Hey, Suraj, just while you're playing the video, should we be hearing audio? I'll bet the audio on Suraj's video is playing some tricks.
So guys, I'm hearing some feedback that you guys aren't hearing audio on that video. So there is a link.
Oh,
hello,
sorry.
John. Did you say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, that confirmed. I don't hear the audio either. And I think it was cutting off your sound while it was probably trying to play.
Okay, well, you had some great graphics for a little while then, so hopefully you got all the meaning. I've stopped it halfway, and we can always send a link out on the chat later on after this initial session is done, and we can share the link of the video as well.
Yeah, so one thing I failed to mention in the beginning, guys, is there is a little link in your control bar that has handouts on it, and those are the electronic media we're making available, so the links are going to be embedded in there, and I'll make sure everybody has them following it.
Okay, guys, so there's always 3 things that go wrong. That's the first one. And luckily, my part of the session is coming to an end, so somebody else is going to get the remaining 2 issues that usually go wrong. But look, listen, there's a landing page on the Jadu.net website, jadu.net/deployer. That video is on there. You'll also hear a load more about the deployer there. It's a brand new tool, so some of our customers, some of our users and developers have been testing this in beta with us. It's currently available for all Linux distributions of the Jadu platform. So just to let you know, jadu.net/deployer, there's some resources there, and we'll be expanding that deployer as time goes by. We actually have one customer in Australia that's been using the deployer in production use for the last few months, and they're making some really good headspace as well. Whoops. Sorry, guys. Okay, so if you were lucky enough to be at the Denver Academy last year, you'll have seen the Jadu ecosystem strategy that we've been kind of crafting over the past year. And listen, look, Jadu isn't a huge company. There are 85 Jadugars around the world, and by the end of 2019, we'll be at over 100. So we're growing a little. But what makes us much larger are the size of our partners. Highland, Pitney Bowes, and there's many, many large global partners that we've been working with and are onboarding at the moment as well. And we've brought together integrations and connectors with our partners. These are technology connectors that make it easy to link one system to your Jadu system or multiple systems to your Jadu system and unlock more functionality. We've also deployed a library. So last year we launched an online library. You can go to Google and you can search for Jadu library. It's live there now. And this library will be filled with open source assets like forms and widgets and workflows. But in order for us to get those assets out there, we kind of need your help. So if you do decide to build a form for expenses, please make it available on the library so everyone can share, because now you should just be able to download that form from GitHub or from our library, which is sitting on top of a GitHub repository, and you should be able to just import that into your system and reuse it. And we're hoping that the customer Slack community is where you can start exchanging ideas for assets on that library. It's brand new, so there is a government section and there is a higher ed section. It's pretty empty at the moment, so it's a beautiful building with no books in it. And we're hoping over the next couple of years to really fill that out with rich content. It means that delivering digital services is much faster for you guys. If you click the link in this slide, there is an animated tour of the ecosystem, but if you also watch the video from the Denver Academy, and if you just Google Jadu Denver Academy, the keynote session will be there in the search results, and you'll be able to see me presenting this as I did last year in Denver. You'll all know that we've entered the case management marketplace about 3 years ago. So CXM is focused on case management and workflow. Workflow for Jadu forms, but workflow for actually anything, because it's built on top of an API. It's a real-time SaaS digital concierge platform. It's a platform that helps you automate and integrate with different systems to deliver an outstanding experience. So when someone fills in a form, there should be a process behind that. Or when somebody even calls you on the phone and maybe you want to integrate with the Lex API from Amazon, you should be able to automate those processes. And this is why we've created CXM. And to scale up, we started our move to AWS just late last year. We're kind of in the finishing stages of moving to a much more highly scaled infrastructure. And the way we're starting that is to deploy our US node and our node in Australia as well. So real global growth happening. And that move to AWS cloud is now imminent. We're processing over 10,000 cases a week, and the platform is really driving the growth here at Jadu as well. So I'm going to hand back to John now, and John's going to show you how that works. Listen, guys, have a great virtual academy. I really hope you get value from the next few hours, and hopefully I'll be seeing you all in person really soon as well. So John, I'm just going to hand back to you.
Thanks, Suraj. Appreciate it. Let me make sure that this transition goes well. Everybody's seeing a slide right now that says Jadu, everything possible. I'll maybe just ask my team that's able to respond there.
Yeah, we can see it, John.
Okay, great. Let me just real quick and check and see. It looks like Anna Separate from Rush has put a question in here. Do you have a roadmap to the move to AWS? I suppose Anna's probably asking about Suraj's slide for CXM. And I guess I can probably take that myself. Yeah, this kind of segues nice into the section that I'm going to go on. Let me make sure there's no other questions, and if not, then I'll answer Anna's question as I kind of transition my own slides. What's that? You answered? Okay, perfect. All right, so let me go ahead and Anna, I'll answer your question kind of as we are jumping into my session. Okay, so yeah, that's a great question. Suraj mentioned that we launched the CXM service about 3 years ago, and now we're doing something like 10,000 cases a week. Our customers are receiving 10,000 cases or new items in their workflows per week. So we've kind of let that product mature in the UK. Before launching it here in the US. And now that work to stand that up in a US data center in AWS is currently underway. The final steps of that are being done as we speak. And that's pretty imminent. So we've got a couple of customers that are kind of waiting right now until that's done to jump in and go live in the US data centers. So if you have any specific questions about, what impact that might have, especially following the information that I'm about to present, then feel free to, shoot me an email or ring me up on the phone. So I'm pretty excited to walk through this. Some of you have seen different bits and pieces of CXM, but I suppose that launching CXM is kind of just becoming a repeatable business process for Jadu. We launched CMS. It was what kind of launched Jadu's business on the CMS product, and then we launched XFP to deliver more value to the customers that were using CMS, give them a great tool to build their forms on, which were commonly being built and presented through their public web domains and portals. And now CXM is coming along to help customers that use XFP to help get more value out of that, and also just put some more structure behind the processes that the forms you're building in Jadu XFP are ultimately driving. So this isn't really a presentation as much about CXM as it is about how you can leverage XFP and CXM together. So I know we have a lot of customers on the phone that have licensed Jadu's product called Content Portal. And so when I say XFP, probably most of you know, but maybe not all of you. XFP is Jadu's X Forms Professional. It's our electronic forms product that's embedded inside of Content Portal. So with CXM, we're basically now delivering a platform that allows you to build more structured processes behind and kind of collect approvals on forms that come into your organization. What's nice is you can kind of hand those business processes and the ownership of those off to the different areas of the business. And as I'll show you here, Xforms just kind of becomes the front end capture point for that. So some kind of high level things. Xforms can create new cases or new items in workflow, and they can also update existing cases with information. So you might have a process going on that required a student to maybe upload a document to some kind of written justification or something that needs to be added to that case. So that can be handled through an X form that can then just go and update that case with that information. There's also then a rules engine that you can kind of just, once you create those rules, you let the rules handle the work. So I get an email asking me to take some action. I come in and I take that action, and the system knows what the next steps are based on the rules that we've built in. So when you're talking about XFP, a lot of times we're really just talking about approvals on forms. So this form comes in, and before it gets to the next step, I have to have my manager approve something, or somebody else or a group of people needs to review and approve it. CXM is a perfect use case for that. And lastly, CXM, as you'll see, I'll show you the rules and kind of logic designer in it. It's not very non-technical. Truly kind of a low-code platform, if you will. So CXM case types, which for those of you that might be familiar with other workflow type products, a case type is a workflow or a process, if you will. And I kind of like to start off by just telling people what makes up, or I guess what the anatomy of a case type is. So a case is made up of statuses, which are basically the steps or workflow queues within a process. Transitions are the routes or the paths that you can change items from. So when something comes in and it's sitting at an inbox, a transition is a route that would allow you to, send that to a manager for review. And then within CXM, we also have a forms component. So if I want to approve something and route it forward, I might be presented a form that I'm asked to put some information in before I can send it on to the next step. And then the rules engine that allows you to put a lot of that if this, then that logic behind how things flow through the workflow. And then there's also a great designer for building out all of your notifications and alerts and invitations that you might need to send to people as they make their way or as they're participating in any of these workflows or case types. So I picked an expense reimbursement process. I think we have a couple of folks from Butler Community College on the call. Currently working with Butler to kind of take a look at their expense approval process and build out something that would kind of mimic that in CXM. So since we're kind of working on that now, I thought it'd be a good example to show today. What you're seeing here on the left-hand side is the green box represents an employee expense form that an employee has to come to and fill in some information before this process can kick off. So there's certain required elements in that form that we would set up just in a standard X form. And then we've built out some templates and some rules on the form that govern how this case gets created and who gets notified when, say, I submit my expense report for my manager's review. On the right-hand side is kind of CXM taking over. So the general process for this that I'll walk through is employee submits a form. That goes to their direct manager. Their direct manager reviews it. If they don't have any issues with it, they approve it and they pass it on to a senior manager. However, you can see here that maybe after it comes in, there's some additional information or the receipt that was scanned isn't legible or it doesn't match the amount. So there's a way for the manager to communicate back to the employee and ask them to maybe re-upload that or give some clarification to what they might have intended to submit. And it can then go on to one senior manager level for approval there. They can review and approve everything that's come in at this point. They can also themselves request additional information or approve it and then send it on to the finance team for processing. So kind of going back to my previous slide where we have statuses and transitions and rules, basically these boxes, well, the boxes over here on the CXM side represent the statuses, and the black arrows in between them are what we call transitions. And I'll show you here as we walk through what the rest of the elements are. So this is a screenshot of inside of CXM. I plan to show you guys a live demo today as well, but I wanted to make sure we didn't have any technical snafus that prevented us from doing that. So I've kind of put together some screenshots. This is after you've kind of set up the general case type, give it a name and decide, who's participating in these cases that come in. You then need to build out the statuses. And as you can see here, we have an initial status that's kind of the inbox. Every time an X form is submitted, that's where it goes. That's the status that it gets labeled as. And as soon as that comes in, an email or a manager gets notified and the status gets changed to manager review. So the list here is a list of all of the steps that we've accounted for that something might possibly be able to flow through. And then you'll notice that we've kind of color coded these to let you know blues are things that are kind of going happy path, greens are things that are routing forward, reds are color coded to kind of when a process has kind of come to an end or is stopped due to some information it may need. So this is creating a new status. It's literally just giving it a name, and then you can also pick and kind of color code what you want that to show as. Color coding's, you'll see in a minute, comes up because a user might actually see that status represented as a button. So then we move across the top. I'm kind of moving across my toolbar up here. So I've created the statuses, and now I'm creating the transitions. So transitions are basically the rules that say when something is in the inbox, I want to be able to send it to a manager. or when something is at the manager review, I want to either be able to send it to senior manager review or change the status to submit more information. So you can see here as we walk through the process for creating new transitions, I can have multiple, I can have a status go from multiple statuses to multiple statuses and so on and so forth. Or I'm sorry, to a single status. And then there's a little button here that says display this transition as a button on the case type. And we'll see how that works here in just a minute. We also have the ability to create forms inside of CXM. These are not the forms that would be used for the same use case as an X form would be. This is kind of internal forms as I'm processing things in the workflow and I need to capture some information maybe before I change the status or send it on in the process. So here we've got a form that just has 3 fields. It's a drop-down menu asking me what my decision is, provide some manager comments, and then associate or assign the manager's email address if it's not already done for me of who this is going to next. So this would look like a form inside of CXM as I'm routing something forward. And the rules engine is where most of the magic happens. So this allows you to really put some good logic behind how these transitions get applied in the first place if a person isn't manually going in and associating or assigning a transition. So here's an example where we've created a rule that says when the event case created occurs, so when a new case gets created, then I want to send an email using the email template that we have selected there to the manager's email address. And you'll see where this comes into play when we have our form. But this rules designer, you see you can do when this or this and that, then do this. So there's a lot of logic built into the rules engine. As you can see here, we have four rules. We had, backing up, we have 5 rules set on this particular case type. And then here we've built out 4 different email templates, things that might notify a manager that a new item is there for processing, or it might notify the senior manager that that's there, or then it could in turn notify the finance team that an item has made its way through and is fully approved and now they need to process the reimbursement. The email designer looks a lot like the email designer that you see inside of XFP today, which probably most of you are familiar with. Here we've embedded a link that will automatically take a user that receives this email to view the case inside of CXM. So I recorded a short video that I'm just going to talk over. So this one, don't let me hit pause real quick just to clarify. You won't hear any sound here. You'll just hear me talking. But I thought this would be faster than me typing all the responses into a form. So here's an example reimbursement form. So in this case, the employee received an advance of $150 before this. So we need to take that into account when we calculate the reimbursement to them. So we're gonna also calculate the number of miles they use their personal vehicle for times the IRS rate. So in the background, we have some calculations going that are adding the totals up for the expenses, but they're also adding up the totals if I had selected my personal mileage, and then also if I had received an advance for this expense, then we're going to obviously deduct that out before we determine a total amount to reimburse. And I think on this form, I've just submitted 2 expenses, but you can see there, I had a question, do you have another expense to submit? And I said, yes. So that's taking me into basically an identical set of questions asking me to fill in the details of my second expense. So I've got a Marriott expense of $250 or so, and then an Uber expense for $73. And we're going to attach those and then hit no. We're not going to submit another one. So I move on to a screen that in this case is just manually asking me to type in my manager's email address and my manager's name. Now that information there is going to be used by CXM to determine who do we notify that this information has come in. So certainly those of you that are creating integrated components, you could have done a lookup there and just brought back the manager's email address, maybe based on the logged in user's information, and populated that somewhere else as a variable and not necessarily have to make this manual for the end user to tell you who their manager is. So I'll skip forward here. That would then result in an email from XFP going to Johnny Test, who's the employee. Thanks for submitting your expense. And you can see that there's some information here, but then there's also a link generated that we might put, more of a friendly URL around. But in this case, a link generated that would take the employee, if you enable this part in CXM, as an employee, I can actually go in and I can track this case. I also have a PDF generated of my expense form. So that takes us over into CXM itself, and let's take a look at how we actually create one of these. How we process one. This is my dashboard that shows me the current cases, and from here you can see the status of each of the cases. So I'll click on the one that just came in, that we just filled in, and that'll take me to the timeline view of this case. So here's all the initial information that we populated the case with, and that all came from XFP. And as you can see as well, down at the bottom, we had some logic on the form that calculated for me based on the total mileage I traveled in my personal vehicle and the amount of the advance I received. We have a separate mileage reimbursement amount and then a total reimbursement amount that takes into account the advance that I had received. And as we scroll up, you'll also see the attachments that we brought in. So the receipts themselves, but also the generated PDF that XFP generated for us. This isn't necessarily something you would need on every form, but this just gives you kind of a structured view of the information. So this was all populated through the responses in the X form based on the fact that we had 2 expenses. Oh, there we go. Okay, thought that was taking a while. So you'll notice on the top right-hand corner, I have 2 transitions that I have decided to display as a button. And because I'm the manager, I see these particular 2 buttons that give me the option to either request additional information from the person that submitted the expense, or I can send it directly to my senior manager for review. So this is an example of using a form prior to being able to transition something from one status to another. So before we allow you to transition this, we need you to provide this information. So in this case, this information will be displayed to the employee as the information that I'm actually requesting additionally from them. However, if everything looks good, I can then just click send to manager or send to senior manager, letting them know that my decision is I've approved this and now need them to review it, and I can manually type their email address in, or when you build in these forms, you can have that populated by some other variable that you already know. So pretty quick overview of just kind of the first step of these coming into a workflow. Within XFP, many of you might already see this, but then again, a vast majority of you probably don't. When you're creating an action template in X Forms, and this is the new Forms designer, so some of you this will look a little bit different too, but this would be like creating an action inside of the classic form builder. We have added standard templates that allow you to do things like create a brand new case when an X form is submitted, or attach a file to an existing or a new case, edit a case, update, lots of information. So you can see these kind of standard out of the box templates. So in this case, for that form that we built, we have the action create case enabled. And that is what determined that case getting generated in the first place. We give that case, in this case, we're actually presented with a list of case types that we have in our system. So we've created the case type, employee expense reporting, and now we're picking that. That then gives us the values from CXM that we can map to from our X form. So it's that process that when I submitted that, put all that initial information into the case type. Here's a quick snapshot of some of the logic that we had on our X form. So we ask the user how many miles they traveled for their with their personal vehicle. And here we're taking the response that they gave us there, so the total miles, times 55 cents, which is the current IRS rate. Another calculation that takes the total mileage and other expenses minus the advance, if they had received an advance, and passes all that information on to CXM. So I think I have just a minute or two left to actually go in to the live. And Joel's sitting next to me. Joel, have you seen, are there any questions coming in?
No.
Okay, cool. If there's not a lot of questions, then I've got an extra minute or two. So I'm just gonna create a live example here. I'll put a demo. And so, did you receive an advance? The new form builder, as Andy Green will show us a demo later, gives us what we call in-page branching. So when I say yes to this question, I can now kind of show and hide questions on the same page. Let's say that I received that $150 advance. And yes, I used my personal vehicle, 100 miles. Beginning location was our office. And the ending I'm using the example that this is a admissions recruiting trip. So I'll say high school campus in Dallas. And then Marriott, we'll go back and say hotel. There we go. Throw in my Marriott expense. Oops. Sorry, thought I had this all set up. There we go. And now I will, just for time's sake, I won't submit another one, but just to kind of give an example again, when I have this, do you have another expense to submit? If I say yes, then this section asking me for basically the same information appears. So I'll say no, just in the interest of time, and we'll just submit this one. And the next page is going to ask me for my manager's email address. It's been a golf week at my house this week. My son's high school golf season kicked off, so I've got Tom Watson on the brain. Here's our confirmation page that just shows us basically a summary of all the questions we were asked and the information that we responded. And I'll go ahead and submit that form. Now, if I jump over into CXM, it's probably going to want me to log back in. We'll hit sign in. We're going to land on our dashboard that'll show us a list of cases that have come into the system. So here is, this should be item 12 that I just submitted. And you'll see here that I've filtered this just down to the case types for employee expense reporting. Over here on the right, we can see the status of each of the case types. And if I go back a page, you'd probably see some that have made it all the way through to processing by the finance team. So first, let's jump up here in my demo email account and just take a look at the emails that would have just come in. So here is, this might not be the one. It looks like the internet hasn't brought it over yet, but here's the email confirmation back to the user that submitted it, and then a link that takes me directly to that case. Oh yeah, we'll switch back here in a second. Okay, let's go into this one. So manager gets email, clicks link, comes to this dashboard, can review the information from the form that came in. I can click and I can open up the receipts that were attached, thumb through those, and I have the option here to either request additional information, or I'll just go ahead and send this on to my senior manager. Oh, this is not the one I just submitted, is it? Looks like I'm submitting another one because I only put one receipt in. Sorry guys, didn't catch that. Manager comments, looks good. Plus Jadu.net. Whoops. There we go. Email verification turned on. Okay, now I happen to be logged in as somebody who's going to be able to traverse this case throughout its, all the different statuses. But what would have typically happened here is the manager would now no longer see the ability to approve or decline, and the senior manager gets an email to come in. So here I have also, as a senior manager, still the ability to request information from the submitter, or I can go ahead and approve or decline this expense. If I approve it, I haven't asked for any additional information, but that's automatically going to change the status to send to finance for processing. So somebody in the finance department will get a notification now telling me that management has approved this expense for reimbursement. So it's a pretty simple process, and in the amount of time we had today, I thought that would probably be best. But hopefully that makes sense. The last thing I was going to cover before we take about a 10 or 15-minute break is just some of the key integrations, and I think Suraj kind of touched on this nicely, but as many of you are aware, because some of you have come on through our partners Highland, who make Perceptive Content, the product. Some of you have come on through other partners of ours, through resellers or referral partners, but our integrations hub is where a lot of the integration for these partner products and tools lives. And again, we are trying to help you unlock more of the functionality from not just our system, but those. So you're familiar with things like Perceptive Content, the document management solution, AssureSign for electronic signatures, Ethos, which is the middleware product for banner and colleague integration, and things like Office 365. So I guess what I really just want to convey is, continue to keep your eyes on the integrations hub and the integrations that we're rolling out. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back, and we're actually going to have one of these partners, Jared from Cluedo, give us a presentation on their search tool. So hopefully that's helpful for everybody, and please feel free to use the questions tool. Do I have any questions in there, Joel? I should pause and ask. Okay, no questions. All right, well, start asking more questions, and we're going to take just let's call it a 10-minute break, because it looks like we went a couple minutes over, and we'll come back with Jared. So grab yourself some coffee, take some pictures, and post them on Twitter. We'll be back in just a few minutes, guys. Looks like it's, what time do we have? 12:20. Let's start at the bottom of the hour. We'll go 10 minutes instead of 15. Thanks, everybody. Jared, Cluedo Jared, that is. Can you hear me? I want to make sure I have sound for you.
Yep, can you hear me?
I can. I was just going to go ahead and hand this over to you now, and I'm just ahead. So,
okay.
If you're ready for that, I will make you presenter.
Perfect.
Cool. How are you, by the way?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I heard you say you're in golf mode. I officially booked my first Minnesota tee time of the year for this upcoming Saturday.
Oh wow, Minnesota tea times. That's something to celebrate this early in the year.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like 65 on Saturday, which, for me is going to feel like 150 degrees.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit of that here in Kansas City too. I think the country is, which is nice. My son officially started high school golf today, actually. So
That's exciting. That's one of my few regrets I have in life is not playing competitive golf growing up.
you and me both. Looking back, would have been a great way to play a lot of golf inexpensively.
I know. Now we got to pay $50 at least every weekend.
All right. Well, we are gonna go a couple more minutes, and then we'll be right back, Jared.
Sounds good.
Christine was saying, I know you do.
All right, Jared, I think we're just about ready for you. Just before I turn it over to Jared, just another reminder, feel free to ask questions along the way and we'll monitor those. If there's any questions for Jared or anything that, is a longer question, well, first off, I'd still encourage you to ask it here, but feel free to shoot me an email. Okay, Jared. Jared is from Cluedo, one of our partners for search. And, for those of you that are using the Jadu CMS or even not using the Jadu CMS, you're probably all aware that Google kind of pulled the rug out from under everybody over the past few years, as a lot of higher education institutions were using different types of Google search tools. Which, I don't want to put words in Jared's mouth, but I feel like that's probably opened up a great opportunity for you guys. I know I've seen a demonstration of Cluedo, and really kind of opened my eyes up to all the things from a search perspective that customers really should be doing, and that quite honestly you didn't have the ability to do with something like a Google site search. So, Jared, thanks for joining us today. I'm going to turn it over to you, but I'll keep myself unmuted. If I see any questions that come up, we're going to kind of hold those to the end. But fire away. Again, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you guys having me. It's been great to work with the Jadu team thus far, and I'm excited to talk to the U.S. clients today. So, like John said, I'm Jared. I am from Cluedo, and I'm just going to kind of. I've only got 10 minutes today, so I'm not going to be able to tell you everything in the world that I know about site search, but at least want to touch on some points of why it's important, and specifically why it's important for the folks in higher education, because it means a little bit different depending on what type of an organization you're for. And then I do want to show you some resources that they're on Cluedo's website, but they are non-biased, just kind of giving you an idea of some things to think about when evaluating what's important for your search options out there. And then we're not really going to get into the product today. I just want to talk about what it means, what search data provides, and then if there are any folks that do want to see more of a one-on-one live product demo when we've got more time, certainly reach out to John, and we'll be happy to facilitate that, because that usually is an hour to an hour and a half conversation. So I'm Jared Mueller, Partner Account Manager, which means I work with all of our fantastic partners, and Jadu is one of them. We are a global company, so our headquarters are technically in Denmark and Copenhagen, but our US office is here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is where I'm headquartered. What we are, site search is it's really the tip of the spear. Having a good working or a not so good working search tool can have a very big impact on people's experience on your website. But as part of the iceberg that's below the water, we believe that the data provided from search and what you can do with that data is really where the true value lies with our customers. So like I said before, we are a global company. We do have over 800 clients. We haven't been in business too long, but have been fortunate enough to have the success we've had so far. And like John said, Google actually did have some good products, and they were very, very cheap, and provided quite a bit of functionality. So when they exited the market, it left a pretty big void. So that, and coupling that with people understanding more and more what the value of search can be, has really been a boom in our business. So just a couple of things to talk about. Like I said before, search is really just the tip of the spear, and whether or not you have a properly functioning or not properly functioning tool will have a direct impact on your clients, and they're ultimately the people that are visiting their website. This number is actually a little bit outdated. It's getting much closer to 1 and 2 versus 1 and 3. I had our data science team pull specific numbers from some of our higher ed clients over the last year that I'm going to share later on in this, that are pretty cool and tell a pretty good story. But people that are coming to your website, these are people that are very, very objectively focused. They're looking for something very, very specific. So, you've got one website visitor that's coming there, and they're going to use the navigation bar, and that's really important to have that structured properly. There's really good CMS platforms out there like Jadu where you can do that. But for the people that are using website search, more often than not, they're looking for something very, very specifically. I was just talking to John about the fact that I just booked my first tea time for this coming weekend in Minnesota for the year, which is fun. But just the other day, I was looking for a new sand wedge online for my golf game. I went to the manufacturer's website because that's who makes it, and I tried to do a web search for it, and the results were not what I was expecting. I could not find the club, and I had to navigate through the actual navigation tree, which took me much longer. Because I work for a company that sells a SaaS product that is a search tool, I know what those frustrations can be, and I was patient enough to stick around and use their actual website to find it. Most people, what they're going to do, and think of yourself going to buy something online. If you don't find what you're looking for, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to leave, you're going to go to Google, and you're going to find the first option that pops up and go buy it from there. So whether you're a company that's physically selling a product, a nonprofit organization, a university that's trying to get students to enroll there or to donate to your university, I can't find that information. It's a very frustrating situation for me, and my first initial reaction is going to be to leave and go do it from something else, or go find it from somewhere else. I'm just going to back out of this presentation real quick and show you a couple of quick live examples. So this is actually one of our customers, the University of Virginia. So as I'm not an alumni, I went to a different college, but let's say I wanted to give back to the university. As you can see here, their search results, the first thing that pops up are people that have the name give in their name, which is cool. So you can find faculty and staff. But as you look down below where the actual results are, you can see the first option that pops up is where to give. That should be the first option because it's such a big university. You can figure out, do I want to give to the specific neuroscience? Do I want to give to a specific school? Do I want to make a general donation? We would consider these results very, very relevant. And that's why people think that just because they have a search tool, that's good enough. But if you don't understand whether or not your visitors are ultimately finding what they're looking for, that can be a very, very frustrating web experience, and especially if you don't have control over those results. I actually grew up in a modest-sized town in central Minnesota, just a couple hours north of the Twin Cities. This is not a client of ours. As you can see, they use Google Custom Search. This was the community college where I'm from. So I just did a brief search of their website, and I'm searching for the exact same thing. So I want to give to this university. The first option that pops up is a web article back from 2015, and the second option that pops up is a web article from 2012, and so on and so forth. And you can see that the results down below are not relevant at all, and nowhere on this page does it tell me where I can give. And there you even see one that has a scholarship. Well, I'm not looking for a scholarship. I want to donate. So for me as a website visitor, that's very, very frustrating. And what we found through our data is that over 75 people that use the search tool will not look past the third option. So you as the end user, as the organization who's in charge of the website, you may not even know that your search is not functioning. So there's tools out there like Cluedo's that not only will give you control to fix these things, but also provide that data back to you and say, hey, you know what? I as an end user searched give. I didn't find any information on it. That's a problem. That means that I'm looking for something very specific, couldn't find it, I had a bad experience, and the next thing I'm going to do is take my charitable donation and give somewhere else. So whether or not you have a search tool, if it's functioning, cool. If it's not, that's a problem. But do you have the means to get that data ultimately back to you so that you can ultimately take action on that? So that's why we say that the search component of it is the tip of the spear. It's really what people are looking for and whether or not they're finding it on your website. And that's why we like to position ourselves as being able to take that data, that analytics, and that can really drive your overall content strategy. So the people that are in charge of the website, the people that are in charge of the content, the marketing folks, they put tons and tons of hours into coming up with relevant content. But at the end of the day, we always ask our clients, do you have a way to validate whether or not that content is great, whether or not it's working? Are there gaps in that content? Are people able to find that content? So if you look on the left side of the screen here, a standard site search tool is just that. It's a mechanism for delivering the content. But if you don't ultimately know whether or not that content is being delivered, whether or not they're looking for something that you don't even have information on, that's where we believe in using Cluedo to overall impact your entire web content strategy. So not only being able to deliver that content, but seeing what people are looking for, collecting that behavioral data, looking into the insights, and then ultimately figuring out, what are people searching for that we don't have information on? What are they searching for that they can't find? What are people searching for a lot that we didn't even know was that popular, and how do we better promote that information on our website? A lot of things that you can ask yourself to ultimately help out your marketing teams, your content teams, and your web development teams. So here's kind of the holy grail, the triangle of what we believe content marketing should be. Like, yes, your data is great from your content management system, the information that you're getting from Jadu. Yes, you're probably getting some sort of web analytics like Google Analytics or Adobe or Site Improve or something like that. But coupling those two with search, your visitors that are your most objective, people that are telling you in their own words exactly what they're looking for and whether or not they're finding it, really gives you a much more well-rounded view into whether or not you have the right content on your website and whether or not people are easily finding that content. So I said in the beginning, I know I've only got another minute or so here, so I do want to wrap this up. I had our data science team pull a few fun facts for us, and this is data that we retrieved from our clients over the last year. So 80% of end users will leave your website if they perceive the search quality relevance to be poor or substandard. So I gave that example before. If I'm going to somebody's website, I'm looking to purchase a specific product. If I can't find it out there, the very first thing I'm going to do is leave. I'm going to go to Google. I'm going to Google the product I'm looking for, and I'm going to click on the first link that happens. People don't typically stay on your website and find it if you're not providing them a means to do so. So 50% of people visiting a start page on a website go straight to the internal search box in order to navigate. People don't want to click through and click through and click through and go through that navigation pane. They want the information that they're looking for, especially if they know what they're looking for. They want it right away, typing in a few buttons, hitting search, and they want that information to be populated. This last one's really cool because this one was the first two stats were specific for all of our clients. This last one was our higher education only clients, that from the beginning of 2018 to the end of 2018, they saw a 64% increase in the amount of visitors that were using their website search. So, you know, we're really conditioned as human beings. It's the era of the smartphone, so you always have a computer in your pocket. First thing I do when I look up, you know, when somebody asks me a trivia question or I want to find out information about a restaurant or anything like that, I'm going to Google and I'm searching for it. We're really being conditioned to do that as human beings. I do want to just show you a couple of quick resources, and then I'll turn it back over to the Jadu team. Like I said before, we do have some non-biased content on our website. We obviously have some biased content as well, but if you click on these links, and I'll provide this information to the Jadu team so that they can distribute afterwards, but if you click on these links, these top two are really kind of cool links. So the state of site search, that's kind of where things are at in 2019 and why it's important. So it gives a lot of great stats on who uses search, what happens if it doesn't go well, what happens if it does go well, and then also the ultimate site search buyer's guide. This is not promoting Cluedo's product. This is just telling you what you should consider when looking for what search tools are right for your organization. So what goals are you trying to accomplish? How are you ultimately going to achieve those goals? And what are some things to think about when looking at what your best avenue is for your organization? That is all the time I have for today. I believe I've already went a minute over. Like I said, if you do want to see the actual product itself, you know, we do love working with the Jadu CMS, and they have built a really nice integration into their tool. So if you do use that, that's awesome. But also if you possess some of Jadu's other products and don't use their CMS, just know that our 800 clients and change, we've encountered just about every content management system in the world, and some you haven't heard of. So we are a truly platform agnostic tool, and are happy to talk and learn more about some of the stuff you're struggling today, and what your goals are around that. So if you do want to learn more and want to set up some time one-on-one with myself and maybe one of our solutions engineers, just reach out to the Jadu team, and they will be happy to facilitate.
Thanks, Jared. That's good stuff. I mean, I make a couple of comments. I know that the folks that are on the call today that may not use the Jadu CMS might be taking the opportunity here to check emails and stay on top of some other work. But the thing that strikes me as where there's a lot of synergy here is, even if you're not a Jadu CMS customer, then you're probably using Jadu forms, and those forms and the links to those forms are a lot of times being embedded on your website. Almost every one of our forms customers has set up the URL for Content Portal or for XFP as some subdomain of the main.edu website. And when you build a form in Jadu, you need a student, a parent, a prospective student, an employee, somebody, if you're using the Jadu CMS on the portal, you need them to be able to find those forms so that they can ultimately get into the departments that need that information to run their business processes. So I've had some conversations with Jared and can kind of really see where all this ties together. So if you are responsible for managing forms across your organization, start thinking about how people are ultimately going to find the link to that form on your website. You might have to go to your webmaster or your marketing communications department and do a little asking questions. What search tool are they using? Are the forms you're building going to be able to be found? And so that's good information. Thanks, Jared. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn this back over to, oh, wait. I suppose I don't need to turn it over to myself first. I need to go over to Chris Hardy. Chris, can you hear me? Do you have audio?
I can, yeah.
All right. Hey, Chris, how are you? So Chris Hardy, Director of Marketing and Communications. I'm not looking at your official title. Did I mess that up?
That sounds good.
Okay. Chris is from Messiah College, and he's going to talk to us a little bit today about really how they're kind of publishing new content, development process for new pages and sites, and ultimately kind of how that integrates with Jadu CMS. So, Chris, what you guys are a whopping, the marketing communications team is a massive team the size of 2, right?
Well, yeah, there's 13 marketing comm, but there's only really 2 of us that manage the day-to-day of our website.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for that clarification. All right, well, I'm going to turn it over to you, Chris. Make sure that you get the controls here. Oh, cool. And while that's transitioning over, just thanks a lot for jumping on today and giving everybody kind of a view into how you guys manage the web over there at Messiah.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do it. So as John mentioned, my name is Chris, and I'm the Director of Web and Digital Marketing here at Messiah College. I'm very fortunate to work with some really talented people. As Suraj was mentioning earlier, Ramona, who is the Web Services Manager, and John Wheat, who is the Senior Analyst here, who does a lot of the back-end stuff with Jadu. I probably look at Jadu a lot differently than a lot of the people on the call today. I'm not actually a developer or an engineer. I really focus on making our website the best and most effective recruitment tool as possible. So I really try to look at our website through the eyes of a prospective student. Maybe that's a graduate student or a high school student who's looking for a college for the first time. So we do a lot of custom content where we're creating landing page experiences or very highly designed and immersive pages that kind of unpack the Messiah College story. And that's really what I want to talk to everyone about today, is some of the different types of pages we're creating and how we've kind of created a workflow around creating those different sites and pages. So first, I just want to kind of overview some of our standard widget pages. And these are the pages that pretty much make up 98% of messiah.edu. So you can see here on our web services page, we have around 30 widgets and supplements that we use on home pages and doc pages. And I'll give you a few examples here. These are just pages with different widgets. You can see here we have a featured event widget that that pulls in events from our event module. We also have some visit options there on the bottom of the screen. So you can see we have we call it the image hover widget, so that the user can hover over one of those images for those different visit types and find out more information there. We also have here, you can see some accordions and some image links. So we have a lot of these standardized widgets that we allow users, just your typical Jadu editor. We have, I think, around 150 different content editors, employees or work studies here at the college that are creating these pages and using these custom widgets. But what I really want to talk to you today is more about the custom pages that we're building and creating, more the marketing office, that are highly designed. They're custom built, custom coded, just for that specific page. So these are all very unique pages, unique elements. And I kind of wanted to walk through our design process for that. But first, let me give you a couple examples of these pages. So this is the About Messiah page that we just rolled out here really just a couple months ago. So you can see there's video content, there's infographics, there's a full bleed carousel with images from our campus. Get to know the area here. You can see all the different things in our area. The user can scroll around the different portions of this page. So this is obviously not a standard page. It's not something that we could build with just the standard widgets that we use to kind of create messiah.edu. Here's another example of this type of page. This is our student life page. As you can see, it's very immersive. There's a lot of content on here. And these are the pages that I guess I'm talking about when I say very customized pages that really require us to start very early on in the design process with wireframing and all that good stuff. So this is our web design workflow. So when we're creating these custom dev pages, we really start right from the get-go with the wireframes. So this is kind of how our web design workflow worked maybe a year or two ago, before we've kind of integrated some new workflows to make this more efficient. So we were wireframing the site in Balsamiq, we were designing it in Photoshop, we were doing just custom HTML prototypes. So we would just take screenshots of the page and then kind of splice them together with HTML. We would do our HTML mockups, which would require a lot of back and forth between the developer and the designer, importing assets and fonts and all that good stuff. And then we would finally get to our CMS implementation, where we'd kind of build everything out in Jadu. What we found was this was a very fractured process, and it ended up just taking a lot longer to kind of get to where we needed to be with these pages. So one of the tools we've started to use is Sketch, which is an open source wireframe and design tool that has a lot of cool plugins like Envision and Avocode. So you can see our web design workflow now has been pretty it's much more efficient just because we are just using Sketch. So we're able to use Sketch from wireframe, design, prototype, and then our HTML mockup with the use of Sketch plugins like Envision and Avocode. So I know that was probably really high level, really quick. This was actually a presentation I did a few months ago. It was a 45-minute presentation, so I'm trying to kind of move through it pretty quickly. And I want to make sure I'm not losing everyone. So I want to kind of walk you through a recent project we did and walk through that design workflow I just shared on the screen. So this was our athletic page. So we had our main athletic link in the global navigation of our website, and it just linked to our athletic site, which was a sidearm site, and they basically just managed all the athletic news for the different sports teams. It had the schedules, it had, you know, the athletes and the coaches, the rosters, all that. But what we found was prospective students really just more or less wanted to see, you know, what life was like for the typical student as far as like game day experience and maybe physical fitness, you know, what were our facilities on campus. So we decided that we needed a new page to kind of help unpack this, and we wanted to build it out in Jadu as well, so it was easy to edit and manage. So here's kind of the workflow that we went through. We started with the wireframe. And one of the things that we've always struggled with at Messiah is just how to balance content and design in the early stages of our design process. So do we start with the content team writing a bunch of copy for a page, and then we kind of figure out how to make that into a website or a web page? Or do we design it first, kind of figure out the UX or the different elements on the page, and then ask the content team to come back in and write to those different spaces? And what we found was using Sketch to actually kind of create some of these standardized elements. We call them starting points, so they're not really templated elements because we think that's we just want to make this more of a starting point, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So we use these starting point elements within Sketch, and this is kind of what it looks like when we're doing this. So when we would do this actual process, this wireframe process, we would have the designer in the room, we would have myself, and all the content writers. Typically there's two of them on these projects, and we would start with just an artboard in Sketch, and then we would go to those standardized elements, which are called symbols in Sketch, and kind of drag them onto the page based on what the content team was kind of seeing. So we would kind of be talking through, hey, we need an overview paragraph and a heading. Maybe we want to get into some infographics here on the page. And this allowed us to really just on the fly kind of design the outline of a page and modify it based on what the content team was seeing or thinking. But at the same time, we're still kind of living within the realm of what we've done before using these templated symbols within Sketch. So you can see there just in a few seconds, I was able to kind of wireframe a page within Sketch to kind of give everybody in the room a feel for how the page would be laid out. how much content we would need for the overview paragraph, or how many infographics we would need, stuff like that. So you can see here, this is where that page would have ended up during that process. And then the next thing we would do would be the content team would actually write the copy for those different pages. So you can see now we have the hero copy, we have the overview copy, all of the infographics down there under athletic recognitions. We can now see that they're in. And here we even decided that we wanted an overlay of our falcon, which is our mascot here at Messiah, to remove two of the infographics and have the falcon in there as well. So this is really kind of where the wireframe stage would end during this process, and we would hand this off to the designer. Now, one of the cool things about Sketch is that when we hand this off to the designer, we're actually handing it off in a way that's really easy for them to design within Sketch. So they're not having to go to InDesign or Photoshop. The Sketch wireframe is already built on our grid system for Messiah.edu. So those same container widths and gutters and columns that are specified in the CSS files of Messiah.edu are also set up within Sketch. So you can see the width of the total kind of the parent container there is 1160, and that's exactly what it is on Messiah.edu. So as we've wireframed this page, we actually already have it set up in a way that works really well for the design team, so that they're not designing something from scratch in Photoshop or InDesign and sending it back to us with the wrong widths and heights and all that stuff. So this was really, really helpful. And this is kind of where that page ended. So the designer built right on top of our wireframe this beautifully designed page. You can probably see a lot of the similarities with the overview paragraph and the buttons and the infographic, and there's the falcon. So that's kind of where the design phase would end. However, in a lot of these pages, we would want to kind of look at some of these elements. We weren't sure if they would really work for the end user, if they made sense. So we actually use a plugin called Envision within Sketch to do a lot of the wireframing. So this is an element that we really weren't sure about. We thought it was unique and looked cool, but we really weren't sure if it would be confusing for the end user. So we wanted to actually prototype this page. And again, we used a Sketch plugin called Envision to do that. So here's how that looks. Within Sketch, you have the artboard on the far left, that full page with all the different elements on it. And then we have all these different artboards for, if we're looking at that what's there to do portion of this page, we have an artboard for each of those elements, those 6 elements that are listed there. So what we can do within Sketch is actually create the prototype. So I'm going to click on that off-campus activities element within the original design, and I'm going to link it to another artboard. So the Envision will actually create a prototype based on this. So now I'm clicking on one of the accordions, the Get Active accordion, and then I'm linking it to another artboard that has that accordion expanded, and then I'm linking the close there back to the original artboard with the full page. And you can see kind of the end result is what you see here. So this is the actual Envision prototype. This isn't an HTML mockup or prototype. This is actually just based on what I just showed everyone based on the Sketch plugin with Envision. So as you can see here, we could do user testing on this. We can show it to project stakeholders to make sure they're on board, and everybody really gets a good sense of what the page is like and how it will interact and feel before we spend a bunch of time doing the HTML mockups and the CMS integrations. The next step is the web development or the HTML mockups. We use a program called Avocode here, and this again is a Sketch plugin. And basically what it allows is it takes all of our Sketch files and spits them out onto a web interface where the developer can come in and basically pull all the code, all the image assets they need to make the page. So in this example, the developers clicked on the what's there to do heading there, and you can see on the right side of the page, Avocode has the PostScript, font name, has the font weight, the line height, the font color, all that there so that the developer can go ahead and build that out. And it also gives you the ability to actually just export all that CSS as well, so you can build your headings and all that good stuff directly from AVA. Another thing we really struggled with was getting the assets from the graphic designer over to the web developer. So AVA has been another good resource for us there as well. So you can see here we have the background image, the image with all the trees and the sidewalk selected there in AVA. And on the right side of the screen, there's an export button. So I can click that image or that export button, and I can create different variants. So one thing we really try to do, especially with these really image heavy pages, is to make sure that we're using media queries for all the different images, especially the big background images. So you can see here, we're actually able to create 2 variants of this image, one at 25% resolution, so it's only 346 pixels wide. And then we also have a full resolution image, which is just under 1400 pixels wide. So with just a click of the button, the developer can export that image at those 2 different sizes and use that in the HTML mockup they're doing. So the last step of this process is our CMS integration. So at this point, we have the HTML mockups ready. They've been tested, and all the stakeholders have approved them. So now it's time to do our CMS integration in Jadu. So what we've done is we've created our own custom season 100%, which is these pages that you just saw. They're kind of full bleed pages. So we call it 100% less. And the reason we have the less in there is just because we're having a lot of collisions with a lot of the CSS that was in the original standard.css file to style out basically all the different elements on our web page. And we aren't using those elements on this page, so it really didn't make sense to bring those in. So that less just kind of references the fact that we're really only including within the season the CSS needed to style the global navigation and the footer, and then everything else has been removed from that season file. And we've even done some stuff in the back where we're removing some of the elements, the HTML elements like the breadcrumbs and some of that to allow for us just to kind of dump in widgets for our hero and for those different elements that we've seen on the page. So we have that custom season that we've set up. The next thing I'll typically do is create a widget map. And this is basically what I'll pass on to John, who is our system analyst here at Messiah. So you can see I have that page that I shared with you earlier with all the different elements, and I'll kind of grid out the page with what I want each one to be as far as widgets goes. So this page ended up being like 6 or 7 different widgets. And that widget map kind of translates into obviously widgets within Jadu. So we'll create specific unique widgets just for this page. We'll add them to the home page, and then we will actually remove them so that other Jadu users aren't seeing them in their widget listing. So they're really just one-time use widgets just for specific pages like this. And then all the numbers on that page, you can see the 1, 2, 3, 4. These are all referenced in like another Google Doc where they're kind of supposed to point. So when you see widget 3 on there, number 1's the headline, number 2 is the subhead, 3 is the body copy. That way the developer knows, what we need to edit, what we need to update. In a lot of these, there's elements that don't need to be edited. Maybe it's like a background image, so we won't worry about including them in the actual widget. Or the editable part of the widget. It'll just be kind of hard-coded in the background there. And from there, you can see kind of the end result of this page. We can now go in, click on a widget, and add all the content we need for that specific element on the page. Here's another example of the game day widget. You can see the overview, then we also have quotes from different students that print out on the front end when a user visits that page. So that's pretty much it. That's our workflow for these types of pages, kind of from the wireframe process all the way to the CMS integration. So hopefully that made sense. I'm sorry I was kind of going through it pretty fast, but I hope you all enjoyed it, and please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions.
Thanks a lot, Chris. That's great stuff. You always have some good tools to show off that you guys are using over there. It looked like Ramona had typed in a question asking you if Sketch and Avocode are subscription tools, and maybe I might just elaborate on that question. Did you find a use for those tools where you're not actually having to pay licensing, or is it a pretty low cost, or how are you guys using those tools from a financial perspective?
Yeah, so they're actually really cheap. Sketch is $50 per license if you have a .edu email account, and that's just basically per year. So you're paying just for the license, and if your license expires, you could just keep using the version of Sketch that you have when your license expired. So it's not like you can't use the product anymore. And Envision and Avocode are both around $20 a month, so just a couple $100 a year.
Cool. Thanks for that. Yeah, that's great. One other comment I was going to make too. So we have a good amount of customers on the call who are content portal customers, and most of our content portal customers probably consider yourselves forms customers or people that are using Jadu for forms. But what Chris is showing here, that design process that he went through, the wireframes, all the way to the CSS, and then ultimately into the Jadu homepage designer. Those are tools that you content portal customers have, the ability to go in and create those homepages. So I know some of you haven't quite explored the depths of homepages and really just how much access you have to the CSS that powers those style sheets. But just thought I'd make that connection for everybody. And again, Chris, thanks so much. That was great. I really appreciate you joining us today.
Sure, happy to do it.
Okay, so next up we have Andy Green, our product owner for Xforms Professional. And if I can find the right button here, I'm just going to go ahead and turn this over to Andy. Andy, while I'm doing that, do you have sound? Are you hearing me loud and clear?
I can hear you loud and clear, John. Can you hear me?
I can. Perfect. And it looks like you should now be getting...
So hopefully you can see if I make it in presenter mode, hopefully you still see it.
Yeah, perfect. So, Andy, thanks for jumping on today. I think your plan is to go through new form builder, and just to preempt that a little bit, there's a good mix of folks that are on the call today that are using new form builder, either have just come out of new implementations, and if you're a new customer today, you're getting implemented on new form builder. But then we've got another group of customers on the call that are still using classic form builder. So Andy's going to kind of walk through and give us a demonstration of that. And feel free to ask questions along the way. Thanks, Andy.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm kind of limited for time, so it will be a very high-level overview of the new form builder, because there's some other sort of areas that we need to cover as well. So I'll crack on. Hang on. Yeah, there we go. So the new form builder, it's not really new anymore. It's been out now for about a year. We are kind of in the process of migrating customers over to it. So it's kind of gives you a new look and feel. It's drag drop. We've got some new components in there, so some kind of taking advantage of the HTML5 components, so we can have proper date components, and we've got repeatable questions, and we've got kind of matrix style components. So we've got all kind of the standard components and then some new ones as well. Also, in-page branching, it was probably our #1 requested feature, was to be able to make in-page branching sections kind of appear and disappear based on questions and how they were answered. So we've implemented that, and we've kind of John showed a little bit of the rules engine in CXM in his section earlier in the morning. And we've got a similar rules engine in Forms now, so we can create our actions can trigger certain templates based on rules. And then recently released, only back in March, we've just added conditional logic, which allows us to build if-else style logic within the control center of our forms. So I'm just going to jump out of here, and hopefully you'll still see my screen. If I go to Chrome, yep. So just going to give you a quick overview. We're going to quickly create a transcript form, so a transcript request form. So hopefully everything looks familiar to you at the moment. If I go to create new form, when the new form builder is enabled, you've got a new option under here saying use new form builder, the recommended option. So I'm just going to click straight into that. And we start off by putting our form details together. So I've already got one. Giving it a category, assigning some metadata. And we've got the same options as what we had in the classic form builder. So I'll just click into that. So this is where we start to build up our form. It's the new page structure view. And on the left-hand side, I can choose to create a new page, or I can bring in an existing page. For the sake of time, I've already made a page, so I'm going to bring that into this form. So this is a ready-made page that I've made called applicant details. So having kind of added the page to the form, it's kind of just available for me to use. It hasn't been added to the structure of the form yet. And to do that, I just drag it into the form structure. I get a chance to rename the page, add some page instructions, and then click save. So that would be kind of the adding pages to the form. If I want to go and have a look and see how pages are actually made, if I just click this edit button, oops, sign out. Let me just sign back in. So going back into our page, this is our page designer. So we've got our question components down the left-hand side, and we've got our page structure on the right-hand side. Now to add in a question, I just drag it in, I drop it down, and then I've got all the settings. So we can set validations, we can make it required, default text, for example. If I have a look at this page, I've got this block in the middle here called School of Science section. Now this section is only going to be shown when the school has been answered and is equal to School of Science, Engineering and Health. So that's how I can build up my in-page branching with my form. If I look at the drop-down menu, I can see that all the options are available to me here, and I can add in new answers as I want. I can reorder the answers, so I can either drag and drop them up and down to reorder them, or I can click this button which will alphabetalize them for me, which has already been done. But so we've got lots of options. We've listened to a lot of feedback about the previous form builder, and we've tried to incorporate as much of that into the new one as possible. So once my page has been added, so page has been added, and it auto saves in the background. Once my form is kind of structures all been decided on, I can then go and decide on the actions that it's going to trigger when the form is submitted. So this is done under the rules engine. So under rules, we can create a new rule, and as John showed you earlier in his bit, there's kind of lots of different rules that we can trigger and actions that we can trigger. So under here we've got the CXM ones which John was showing. We've got the create PDFs, send emails, set content on completion page. We've also got an option for when the user reaches the end of the form. There's a distinction between when the user submits the form and when they reach the end of the form. At the end of the form, we'd want them to take a payment or provide electronic signature, whereas when they submit the form, they've already done those bits, and we just want to action those events. So if I do the end, reaches the end of the form, we've got make a payment or create a direct debit. So yeah, let's do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly just show you how we can set up one simple action. So we'll call it the generate PDF. So on here, we'll create a PDF for submission and choose create new. And here we've got our step-by-step process of creating a PDF. So, okay. And then I just need to upload a PDF file. So this should be very similar to the sort of previous form builder. So yeah. And then we just map the questions. So our mapping, we can just start typing out the question that we want to map and choose from the options available. It's quite a few for names. So go for name, school, social, and then once I click save, then save again. And then when I submit my form, that will generate a PDF with those answers in. Okay, so then the next bit, which I'll finish on, is a couple of areas that we are often kind of asked about. The first is pre-fills. So under the advanced and pre-fills, we can set up our pre-fills. So a pre-fill allows us to pre-fill a question from somewhere else. So if I choose the applicant details name and I want to pre-fill it from a URL parameter, I can set that up quick and easily in my form, and that once I've done that, then I can pass in the name as a URL parameter, and then that will populate that question in the form. So that could also come from logics or a previous question on the form. Doesn't have to be a URL parameter. So then logics are where we go to do our complex calculations within our form. And there are 4 different types of logics. There's the predefined logics, which allow us to kind of query back office systems. This would be the area that developers would normally get involved in, because this is where you can create logics to query your student management systems, etc. And we've got lots of different logics in here in this particular demo system to deal with various systems and to manipulate dates to interact with CXM. We can then do mathematical calculations. So this was the calculation that John was using to calculate the expenses. We have literal calculations, which allow us to kind of join strings together. And then we've got the recently released conditional calculations and logic, which allows us to basically create if, else, and, ors style logic to return a result. So that's a very quick overview. Based on that, if you want a longer demo or anything like that, then feel free to get in contact with John, and we can arrange something between myself and John, and we can do a WebEx going into far more detail about the new form builder, if that's something that you're interested in. So I'll just get back onto the slides. We've been working to implement the new form builder. You would normally need Jadu's help, because they're new templates. It uses the Photon templating engine that Suraj was talking about in his keynote earlier. So there are changes that would require developer or web dev to work in order to roll this out to you. However, we have been working on putting an implementation guide that you can follow and you can do the work yourself. So this would be used by certified developers. There's a section in there for project managers to know how to structure the project. And it basically follows 4 steps. So we have to update our code base in our repository, how to enable the form builder in there, how to build out and style the templates, and then the testing and the deployment of that to your sites. It's currently in beta testing with a few customers, getting feedback on the documentation and how if there's any areas that they're unsure about, so that we can kind of make sure it's a complete document before we share more publicly. It's worth mentioning that if you're a content portal customer, you will get the form builder implemented out of the box when you patch to version 3.0 or above. Content portal customers, it will be enabled and styled for you. So it'll only be if you're a non-content portal customer that you would need to go through this implementation. So I've just got a picture of the guide. It's all web-based, so we can click into it and you can kind of got all the code examples there. So if you're interested in that, please do contact us and we can have a chat and see if we can get you early access to that. So moving on, there's some changes in the way that Xforms needs to be patched. From XFP 99, the forms have to be offline when you do the patch. Now, we've made this really easy. You log into the control center and there's a switch to disable the forms. The patches won't run if the forms aren't offline, if they're not disabled. And you'll get a warning to say that that the forms aren't offline and the patch will exit. The reason for this is we need to shift around some data in the database and we need to ensure the data integrity of your forms. Yeah, basically from 99 onwards, forms will have to be offline during the patching process. So again, any questions about that, feel free to ask and I'll try my best to answer them. So yeah, in the control center under settings, there's just a availability and a toggle to allow you to disable them and enable them as and when you need to. So moving on to some new features, and pleased to say that we finally support Windows Server and SQL Server 2016 in core XFP. So XFP customers can now upgrade to 2016 with one of our latest releases. Content portal customers, we're going through the testing at the moment of the Perceptive Content integration, and we're expecting that to release during April, so within the next few weeks or so, where you'll be then have a version which can then be installed on 2016 and supported. So, in terms of our roadmaps, at the moment we are currently working on improving our Office 365 integration with bookings. So being able to kind of set more sort of configuration options on how a booking can be booked, what sort of cutoff time can be made, making bookings work nicer with CXM. So we've got lots of enhancements coming from there. And then moving over to kind of the next 3 or 4 months, we'll be releasing the ability to access repeatable question variables. We'll have a migration tool from the old form builder to the new form builder, and also some work on data export in the new form builder in terms of making that functionality available to you. Longer term, it's probably within, longer than sort of within 6 months away. You've got the SQL connector, so being able to connect to a SQL database, and also being able to use forms within Galaxy sites. So that's it from me. So it's been nice chatting to you or talking to you. Yeah, John, that's it.
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate it. I was just going to make one point of clarification, which probably everybody heard the right way. Andy had mentioned that it's currently in beta with some customers, and probably you heard this correctly, but just to make the clarification, he's referring to the documentation for implementing New Form Builder, not the actual product itself, as we have a lot of customers that are actually using New Form Builder. Thanks again, Andy. Really appreciate it. For customers that are on Classic Form Builder, feel free to reach out to me. I know we've provided some information back for some of you that are wanting to migrate over to New Forms. So next up, we have Sarah Backhouse. Sarah, are you able to hear me there?
I sure can. Just unmuting myself.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, let me. I'm just looking for you in my list here to make you presenter. There we go. Make presenter. Great. Well, Sarah is a product owner for our CMS product. Many of you have probably heard Sarah talked before, or maybe even spoken with Sarah on the phone, and she's going to go through today. I think you're going to focus on some Galaxies stuff, correct?
Yep, I'm going to give you a quick update on what we've been working on over the last few months, and that includes our Galaxies work.
Yeah, great. Can I let me give about a 10-second precursor for those of you that are not Jadu CMS customers. You might be asking yourself, what is this? What the heck is a Galaxy? Galaxies is a feature inside of our CMS that allows our customers to actually create new versions of the CMS. So not just like a sub-site, but actually a whole new CMS with its own control center. So some of you may not be familiar with that, although most of you, by looking at the list of people we have here, are. So thanks, Sarah. I'll turn it over to you.
Brilliant. Thanks, John. Okay, so let's crack on with this update. I'm going to quickly go into our new features because we've been working really hard over the last few months to bring some new additions, some customer-led new additions into the CMS system. We have, first off, our workflow comments work. Now, I'm sure you're all familiar with our workflow engine, and this was something which we'd had numerous requests for through our feature request system. It was one of our top performers, so we've gone ahead and built that. Really, our workflow comments are around providing additional context for each and every publishing request. So there's now a comment field which is provided when authors go in to send a message to the person who's going to approve their content. Give them a little bit of extra context and help them find perhaps where the change is happening in a big document, although obviously our track changes functionality also helps that. The comments are stored in the history of the page, which is, again, it's a great feature because it means you then get this archive of what's been happening on a case-by-case basis on that page. You can go in and you can see the thought process of the person who went in and made the change. You can see the thought process of the person who made that change live. And you can see the thought process of anybody who goes in and rejects the change. See why they decided that, you know, perhaps this item required more work before it was approved, and you can go and review that later on. The comments are shown in context when the page is being reviewed, and they're also sent over on our workflow emails. So we've not been doing the polls that I noticed, but I'm going to run a quick poll, hopefully, if I can find it. I just wanted to know, did you know that you can get emails for the workflow items that are going on your CMS system? This is a feature that we launched, I believe, 2 years ago, and I'm still seeing some knowledge issues on this. So just wondering, we've got, so far 100%. Give it another kind of like few seconds and then I'll close this off and move on. Give you a quick countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'm closing the poll. So yes, 100% of you do know that you can receive your workflow updates via email. That's brilliant news. So this is what the comment field looks like when you are sending something for approval. This is your box to put in some comments. It's entirely optional. And we're going to be looking at refining this interface because a lot of the people, probably yourselves, are power users who also, as well as being able to send something for approval, also have the ability to approve that content. I'll give you some feedback that you'd like this to be a more streamlined process. We're hearing you and we're going to iterate over this interface. But for the people who go in kind of like once in a while, we pop up this box and we're going to keep the comments there for them to fill in some details about what they've changed and why. When you go in to approve the change, you see in a little friendly comment bubble what's been said, and you can also now, there's an in-context history so that you can pull up the history of that particular item and see line by line who's been in, made changes, who's made it live and when. Just helps you make better decisions in the course of managing this particular piece of content. Finally, this is our content history panel. So we can see that somebody sent this item for approval and there's a quick comment about what they've done. Next, again, this is another customer driven feature that again performed really well in our feature request table. We have event recurrence rules. So we've done quite a lot of work on our event recurrence rules. A lot of it, admittedly, is in the background, and we have now a preview of, go back slide. We have a preview of the dates that have been calculated for an event. So when you say you want something to happen every Monday for the next few months, you can actually see, you know, on the calendar which events are going to be, which dates are going to be hit. Probably not a problem for weekly, but when you have some of the kind of like more complex rules around happen on this date, where you are, or happen on this day per month, where it's say the second Sunday of a month, or these are the ones where we're finding the authors of events are getting a little bit confused, and sometimes when there's a public holiday, there's a Labor Day kind of like coming up, they are missing that this event would clash. And then, you know, the worst thing that could possibly happen is that members of the public or your customers, your visitors, they turn up for the event, but none of your staff do because they know that it's not going to be held on that particular day. So we've got the preview in now so that you can see the consequences of the rule that you're setting. We have the ability now to exclude one-off dates from your event, and also you can add in other one-off dates. Say if you know it's going to happen on this particular day because it's a holiday, but it's going to happen the next day, you can add that day in as a one-off. And we've also, because we're in the same item, taken the time to put in additional options for our weekly event recurrence. So if you have an event happening, it used to be that you'd have to nominate a particular day of the week. Now you can select kind of like multiple days. So you could say every Tuesday or Thursday, this particular event happens. So this is the calendar where you can see the little preview. So this event is just happening on the 1st of September. Oh, I've not got any more slides. Each of these date fields, you can hover over them and click them. And when I hover over and click on the first here, that would then be deselected. And onto the kind of like the big item, we've updated the Galaxy's designer, and this is an update really for our customers who have started moving over to the Photon template set because it utilizes the theming technology built into Photon. So Galaxies, as John mentioned, are a piece of software within the CMS system that lets you publish microsites, and the microsites are entirely separate CMS systems. They're kind of, you can link them if you want to, but they are kind of a separate database, and you can just fence them off and farm them out to specific causes. So we've got 5 new themes. There are even more that have been planned later. Our next edition is going to be a Bootstrap 4 theme. There's now a really nice little theme viewer, and each theme includes a demo page showing the common elements. And a break off to what we've had previously, the microsites, the Galaxy sites now don't need to use, like previously they all had to use the same HTML template, and that's very limiting when we look into then designing themes. Now they can all be separate, and they can all have separate configurable values. So this is like a very quick screenshot of our Galaxy's designer now. We have, if I move on, this is our theme picker with our current themes. We've got Alpha, Spectral, Phantom, Dope, Trope, and Editorial, and a very simple panel for configuring the theme that lets you set in some values such as site logos, banner images. These are going to be built out over time, so this is really our initial offering with this particular bit of software. So this is the editorial theme. All of these themes are responsive. We're trying to kind of really pick up on best practice in terms of design and HTML trends to give you something that's going to be, you know, cost saving going forward, that you don't necessarily need for some of these internal projects to be going and finding a marketing agency, for instance, to go and create you a microsite. This is Dope Trope, which is a very clean theme. We have Phantom, again, it's another clean minimalist theme that's really built for you to kind of like stamp a brand on top of. We've got a customer who's currently going through a big migration project, taking all of their Drupal microsites and moving them onto our Galaxies platform. Once they're finished, I'm going to take a whole load of screenshots to show you the before and after, so that you can really see the benefit of this particular piece of software. This is our alpha theme, which is a very image-led theme, and oh, we've lost one. Okay, there is one more that's gone missing. I'll find that again next time. So roadmap-wise, currently we are working on personalization tools. So the ability to find certain bits of content and highlight them to a particular audience based on a profile that the CMS builds up about that particular visitor. So I've got another poll to run because another of the items that we wanted, well, that we're going to be working on shortly, I think lots of people are going to be interested in if I quickly launch this. Would you like to be involved in our development process emails? So we've got a beta that will be happening shortly to do with development of a new menu manager to include items such as reordering menu items, making them hidden. I know a lot of customers have a custom version of this, but we're going to be moving those tools into our core platform as an alternative. We currently talk to our customers about development items on Slack, but this will be something where we'd really like to see more participation, really, and give you guys the chance to let us know what you're thinking and what you need and what your kind of use cases are before we even touch our code. So I'm going to quickly close that off. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I can see that 100% of you who took part in that have said yes, you definitely want to be involved. So we should be able to follow up outside of this to grab your email addresses and be part of this process. I think there's going to be some surveys going out shortly just to go over the rest of the roadmap, because I cut off there a little bit to launch the poll. So we've got personalization tools. We've also got our RESTful API, which currently is incompatible with our Galaxy site, but we are going to be bringing that into line with the rest of our software and making that compatible. We've got some improvements to make to our installer and to the accessibility of our user interface. We're just going through and making sure that we are as accessible and compliant as we can be. And we're also starting to bring in custom fields into various bits of our standard content types. So really this is the start of a new theme of work for us, where we are going to be looking at how to define custom content types within the CMS. Longer term, I've got the menu builder in there, and that's really for the kind of finished product. But our plan at the moment is maybe to offer kind of like iterative betas so that people can try out the tools and give us feedback throughout. And finally, we've got document import and export, which again, in order to give you guys the tools for managing your sites, being able to build things out on QA sites or other staging sites and then migrate them over in bulk to your system is really the need that we're hoping to serve there. So I'm running over a bit, I'm going to have to go quick. Things in the pipeline, so I've mentioned personalization, the Galaxy's REST module. We're also looking at another couple of options which have come out of the feature request process, being able to turn home pages, which is one of our content types, offline, and also being able to kind of schedule content for approval so that you can, kind of like Friday night, approve something to go live in its, the form that you've just seen, say on a Saturday morning, so that you don't need to be logging in outside of your office hours to make something live if it's embargoed until a particular time. And my last section here is really just a quick recap of our feature request process, because I know customers there isn't an awful lot of information about this. It often feels like your feature requests go into a big black hole, and that's truly not the case. So we've got kind of a 3-step process going on. We document your requests. They're all stored in a directory on the support portal. New requests are added in so that other customers can see those and then resubmit them, so that we add in extra votes if it was like an extra good idea. So if 2 organizations submit it, that then affects the score that it's in it finally given. We collate them, so the duplicate requests, they're merged, the requesting customers are noted, so we can let you know when we've built something that you've asked for. And then the reach value is updated. As I said, if there's 2 customers, then we change that reach value to kind of like 2 or whatever, and that goes in, and it's a multiplier for the score that we eventually get, which is kind of like where it sits in terms of strategic priorities, how risky it is, how long it's going to take us to implement. That gives a value, we rank them all, and then we form a top 5 list. So our top 5 at the moment is scheduled workflow approval, making improvements to the event interface, because I think both events and news are items strongly for events. It's an item which is particularly time limited. You don't want that to be live on your website after it's expired. There's no need to kind of like, if you've got Christmas information up, for example, you only want it to be up for the year that it's relevant to. Otherwise you end up with, a very confusing user experience where you'd see events from a previous year. Homepages being taken offline, and then there's a couple of other kind of that I think are going to be less relevant to you guys around category restrictions. Actually, no, that would be really relevant, wouldn't it? So we've got role-based access controls being introduced into the CMS, and one of the limitations that our customers have been highlighting is that they'd like to be able to have kind of like a standard publisher role, but they can't at the moment because the category restrictions are included in the role, and so they end up with multiple kind of publisher roles. So we've heard that feedback, and yeah, that's planned in as a change. And then we've also got being able to take out a directory record. I've not touched on our directory product. For the customers who are content portal customers, directories is a great, it's like a way of creating a off-the-cuff database on your site. Everything gets, unstructured, it's structured content. You can take a CSV, upload that into the CMS, and then it creates a page for each of those records. And one of the key requests is that then you can assign it to a registered user so that they can go in and manage that content. So if you've got, say, clubs or social events that have been, say, provided by students, that they can manage that and changes have to go through everybody else, but that you don't need them kind of contacting you by email. They can make the changes and submit it to you as part of the CMS managed workflow. So I'm just going to quickly see if there's any questions.
I see one in here. It was more of a comment. Jeremy Nelson.
Custom content types, yes.
Hearing the custom content types.
I'm going to involve you in this, Jeremy. I'm going to be sending you updates.
I also know a magician in the basement of Messiah who answered yes to your poll. So that's great, Sarah. Thank you so much. There's a lot of great stuff on the roadmap, and I suppose I'll probably send a note out to some of you folks that are content portal customers to let you know where that impacts you, because obviously Sarah being the CMS product owner, homepages, the feature that lives inside of content portal is part of the CMS product. So there's some great stuff in here that that you guys will be able to take advantage of as well. I just had a quick question. I don't know if Andy Green's still on, but you mentioned the process for evaluating the product enhancement request. Andy, how is it safe to say that the feedback for XFP and how you guys incorporate that into the roadmap is at least reviewed similarly, and this process is similarly for the XFP product as well?
Yeah, it's exactly the same. We do it about every quarter.
Yeah, perfect. So I didn't want to put words in your mouth if I was slightly wrong on that, but yeah. So I'll also make sure as a follow up that people have a link to that to be able to put those feature requests in. So we're a little bit over, guys. I really apologize. I've asked Christine to pick a winner for our AirPods. She'll send that out in her follow up email tomorrow. So make sure you guys read that. I think for the Twitter award that was going to go out today, I think we've picked Ramona over at Messiah. So you get to pick a charity of your choice that we'll make a $500 donation to. So appreciate you posting some stuff out there. That's great. Hopefully we can keep this rolling, guys. There's going to be a survey coming out, and look, today I think we gave you some kind of product demos that we think are relevant for you guys, and some sessions that we think are relevant for you. Chris Hardy, thanks so much for jumping in and giving kind of a customer's perspective into some of this, but we really need you guys to lead the content and what is being presented at these types of things. So moving forward, we'll really need your feedback, and we'll give you a process ahead of time to make sure that we've got a solid agenda that everybody's provided some feedback in. But I think this was a good kickoff. I appreciate everybody's time and all of our presenters, and hope you guys have a great, productive rest of your day. Thanks so much.